2014. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Calling the roll, Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Brady.
Here.
Mr. Germana.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher.
Here.
Mr. Schron.
Here.
Ms. Conwell. Mr. Jones. Mr. Hairston.
Here.
Ms. Simon. Mr. Greenspan. And Ms. Conley. Quorum.
Okay, we'd like to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For our silent meditation, I'd like everyone to reflect on their own personal meditation. All right, moving on to item 5, public comment related to the agenda. Has anyone signed in?
Yes, Madam Chair, Reverend Butts.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I took the time. I'm not gonna. The clock, that 3 minutes is gonna run the preacher out. So I took the time to type up some of my concerns.
Okay.
And the one I would like to address, two of them that I'd like to address first and foremost, would be the gambling casino. I was in direct opposition to the gambling casino being put there. You have one of the items, which is 2014-0159. The impact of the revenue of the gambling casino. I'm concerned about the impact of the revenue that's being generated from that gambling casino, and I'd like to see it closed, being totally honest. And one of my concerns is, since that gambling casino has been put there, they've taken out the payphones, and when people gamble their homes away, their cars away, and they end up homeless on public square, there are paddy wagons there to collect people and put them in prison and in jails. There are no other options being made available. And gambling costs more than the surface. And it's written in the word for it not to take place. It says time and chance happen to us all. It doesn't say that we take time and chance and that we gamble our lives away, but it happens to us. And we need to reconsider what we're building in this metroplex downtown Cleveland, when people can gamble their homes and their lively resources away, and they have no way to even call for help. And if they call for help, then they're banned from the gambling casino, and they're banned from the gambling casino. They can run my talk, please. Please, thank you. And I'm concerned about that. Would you take time to review that, please?
Thank you very much.
And then also, I'd like to see the smoking ban enforced in front of that gambling casino, because you can't walk to the Rapid on the buses or into any buildings on public square without being bombarded with cigarette smoke. And my other concern was on one of your agenda items. I'm going to give you a copy of this, President Conley.
You can give it to staff president.
Right, that's what I mean. And one of my other agenda items that I'm concerned about is this 158, item number 158. Where it names different entities that you'll be addressing finances toward, including the Fatherhood Initiative, the Domestic Violence and Child Advocacy Center, and some other agencies. I don't see any initiatives or any monies being addressed or allocated in reference to violence against women, disabled people, or senior citizens in this list. Would you please review that and look at that, and then also look at my other concerns?
Right.
And I also brought you all an invitation, each one of you an invitation to an appreciation service for a minister and also another event, and I will give it to your staff. I'm not going to stay for the rest of the meeting because I don't want to subject her to that.
All right, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Yeah, thank you for what you've done.
Okay. All right, moving on to item 6. Is there anyone else I'm signed in? I'm sorry. Okay. Item 6, approval of the minutes. The minutes of the June 10th, 2014 Committee of the Whole and the regular meeting of June 10th, 2014 are in your packet. If you had an opportunity to review those minutes, we can entertain a motion to adopt them as circulated. moved by Mr. Brady and seconded by Mr. Greenspan. Any discussion on the minutes? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The minutes are approved. I'd like to take an opportunity during my period of announcements to recognize two very distinguished public servants who are retiring soon. They are leaving us. I'm not sure if they're leaving because they want to retire or that they're changing the PERS law where they'll make more money or what. But David Raines and Joe Gottner. Both of these individuals have really contributed to Cuyahoga County, and we'd like to recognize them for their service. Mr. Raines, you want to stand up? His services that include Executive Director of the Local Workforce Investment Forum, Investment Board. He's been the interim county auditor during the transition. He was the county administrator for the county. He served as the first deputy county administrator for Health and Human Services. He was the director of Child Support Enforcement Agency and also the director of Department of Community Services. So how together have you been with the county?
I started as a line worker in the welfare department in 1974.
Wow.
Now, I worked in nonprofits as well, so I couldn't really hold a job.
Okay, and what do you plan to do in your retirement?
I'm retiring. That's it. I'm done.
You got to get a new gig
That's the
doing
plan,
something.
anyhow. We'll see.
Okay. And then also Joe Gottner, who has trimmed up his hair a little bit, but yeah, his services has included the administrator of the Division of Cuyahoga County Jobs and Family Services within the Department of Health and Human Services. He's been the Deputy Chief of Staff of Human Services, the Director of Cuyahoga County Health and Nutrition, the Director of the Department of Entitlement and Enforcement Services, and the Director of Child Support Enforcement. And how long have you been with the county?
Madam Chair, I joined the Mental Health Board in 1986, and if I just may respond for a moment, it's perhaps very appropriate. It was Mr. Rines who had hired me under the commissioners. I've often come to think of Dave as my older brother, although my much older brother, lest there be any confusion.
I get a lot of that.
And what do you intend to do in your retirement?
I have some grandchildren out of state I don't see very often. I'm going to teach yoga and maybe do a little instructing, take my PhD out of the garage and drive it around a little bit.
Okay, all right. And we have proclamations brought up by Joe Nani, and we'd like to thank you very, very much for your service. And you will certainly be sorely missed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, and that concludes my announcements, and a call on the county executive.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I want to join with you in your congratulations and appreciation for Dave and Joe, who were part of the heart of what made all of this work for so many years, and some are congratulations and best wishes to them. Earlier today, we had a press conference over at the offices of the Urban League of Cleveland. Councilman Purnell Jones joined us, and Councilman Schron as well. And I just want to say just a couple words about it because it is something that I think we should all be very proud of. It has a lot of potential and promise, and it's fulfilling something we said we would do a while ago. And that is, about a year ago, there were conversations between the Urban League, the Small Business Administration, my office, Councilman Jones, Larry Benders, and our staff from Economic Development, and it fit in directly with conversations we had already been having about how to support small businesses, and those were conversations that Councilman Schron was helping to initiate and very supportive of, as well as Councilman Jones and others on the council. And basically what they said was that there are barriers to financing for small businesses. We all know that. And those barriers are sometimes particularly felt in certain communities. And that has led to, even when we're in a period of economic expansion, it has led to situations where the benefits of that economic growth are not felt in certain parts of our community, particularly the African American community. And the Small Business Administration had a very successful program in Youngstown, where they had eventually seeded approximately 80 businesses, the creation of 80 businesses and approximately 1,000 jobs, and they wanted to use this same model and bring it to Cleveland. So we have been having these discussions and trying to use some of our capacity through our $100 million Western Reserve Fund and try to see if we could make it fit with what the Urban League was doing, which has become, the Urban League has become one of the partners with SBA in terms of being really a minority business center. And we wanted to figure out if we could kind of marry all of these organizations. Then we added one other part to the equation, and that was, instead of having the county being the only kind of governmental partner or entity, would it be possible for us to also have partnerships with municipalities? And we wanted to pick the city of Cleveland because, again, they have, first of all, they have the staff and the expertise through their development department and resources to help with this. And also we wanted to pick a suburban community as well to use as kind of on a pilot basis and see how this goes. And we ended up going with Shaker Heights and the city of Cleveland. So we had a great event today where we're committing about $750,000 out of our Western Reserve Fund. It is being matched by funds by SBA and by the City of Cleveland and Shaker Heights. The Urban League is there to provide additional training for these businesses to make sure that they have the fiscal expertise and the marketing expertise, because there's this enormous problem where people that want to start small businesses can't get financing because they're new to the business world. And then also a traditional method of getting your business started was to use maybe your own personal property as kind of collateral, but as property values fell, particularly in hard-hit communities in our urban areas, those funds kind of dried up as well. It's shocking statistics that we talked about earlier today that 1 in 3 new businesses that were starting, small businesses, were using basically personal finances to try to start, and 1 in 5 were using credit cards. This is not the way that we should be funding our businesses. Important to note, by the way, this is not a giveaway program. We are requiring equity, and we are also having the very active participation of the financial community. So Huntington Bank was there, First Merit was there, Key Bank was there, People's Bank was there, a whole host of other financial institutions. This is a kind of a sequel to conversations that we had 2 years ago where we challenged our lending community to make more of a commitment to small business loans in particular. Their record has been a little uneven. Some banks have done very, very well, some have not. But this is a way to make sure that they get qualified participants. And at the same time that we're supporting economic growth, we're also making for a more equitable society where the benefits of our $100 million fund are going to be felt in communities that they wouldn't have otherwise. Councilman Jones was very eloquently earlier today was talking about his family's personal experience in the way that a program that the city of Cleveland ran a number of years ago helped lay the foundation for his family business. So we have a 2-year kind of review period for this program to see if it works. If it does work, and we think it will because it's based on best practices, but if it does work, we can see this expanding. But I just want to thank the council people again who have taken a particular interest in this. Our development department will be available to council to provide additional details as we sign off on approval processes for this. But it was a good day. It was something we've been working on behind the scenes for about a year. We're one of the foremost communities in the country to have this kind of partnership with our federal SBA and local partners as well. Thanks for your patience, but I thought it merited a discussion here tonight. Thank you very much, Madam President.
Thank you. All right, item 9, legislation introduced by council, consideration of resolutions of council for first reading and referral to committee.
Resolution number 2014-0159, a resolution amending resolution number 2013-0092, dated October 8th, 2013, which authorized a casino revenue fund loan to Playhouse Square District Development Corporation for streetscape improvements to change the amount not to exceed from $3,684,650 to $4 million, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
This goes to economic development. Now, the next 7 items are all charter review items that will be going to the committee of the whole. So, Jean, do you want to just read them, and I won't interfere? I'll just say all of them are going to the committee of the whole.
Yes, and what I'll do, I'll just read the ones declaring the necessity, and then the rest, it will just be a
Okay.
given.
So do we need to make the motion for the short? Yeah, just
I don't
read,
think
just
so.
go.
Resolution number 2014-0160, resolution providing for the submission to the electors of the County of Cuyahoga an amendment to Article 2, Section 2.01, and Article 3, Section 3.03 of the Charter of Cuyahoga County, modifying the residency requirements for the offices of County Executive and County Council, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective. Resolution number 2014-0161, a resolution providing for the submission to the electors of the County of Cuyahoga an amendment to Article 5, Section 5.01, appointment and confirmation of officers, and Section 5.08, Sheriff, powers, duties, and qualifications, establishing the term of appointment and process for removal of the sheriff. Resolution number 2014-0162, a resolution providing for the submission to the electors of the County of Cuyahoga an amendment to Article 12, Section 12.09 of the Charter of Cuyahoga County, accelerating the timeline for the appointment process and commencement of the term of the Charter Review Commission for the year in which the appointment is made. Resolution number 2014-0163, a resolution providing for the submission to the electors of the County of Cuyahoga an amendment enacting Article 14 of the Charter of Cuyahoga County, establishing the Agency of Inspector General in the Charter. Resolution number 2014-0164, a resolution providing for the submission to the electors of the County of Cuyahoga an amendment adding Article 6, Section 6.03 of the Charter of Cuyahoga County, establishing the Investment Advisory Committee in the Charter. Resolution number 2014-0165, a resolution providing for the submission to the electors of the County of Cuyahoga an amendment to Article 6, Sections 6.01 and 6.02, and Article 11, Section 11.01 of the Charter of Cuyahoga County, changing the composition of various county boards and commissions to ensure independence of judgment of all members. And resolution number 2014-0166, a resolution providing for the submission to the electors of the County of Cuyahoga an amendment to Article 3, Sections 3.05 and 3.06, enacting Article 14, Section 14.01 of the Charter of Cuyahoga County to remove party affiliation from elected county offices.
And all of these matters will be on for the committee of the whole, and I'm working with Mr. Greenspan and our clerk to set up the dates for the various dates when we'll be hearing these in the committee of the whole.
The first meeting, I believe, will be on the July 2nd.
Okay.
And I gave everyone a list of all the committee meetings for next
Okay, so
week.
is that at 9 o'clock? 9 a.m. Okay. All right, consideration of a resolution of council for third reading adoption.
Resolution number 2014-0123, a resolution approving the appointment or reappointment of various individuals to serve on the Cuyahoga County Soldiers and Sailors Monument Board of Trustees for various unexpired terms, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective for those appointed in the terms as printed on the agenda, items 1I and II.
Moved by Ms. Conwell and seconded by Mr. Jaman. Any discussion on this? I will say that Mr. Shakarian, who's been on the board for a while and was formerly the county architect, he and I attended a meeting last night about public square and, voicing our concerns about the quadrant of the square that we do own. And so he's been a very active board member, and I'm pleased to see that he's being reappointed.
No, Madam Chair, other than this board is, of course, Board of Trustees or council appointments. And all three of these gentlemen have shown that they have been invested in this, and they did talk about that in the committee HR committee about the square and the problems, and said you were addressing that because you're really a historical buff and all that.
Here next year.
So if you could just keep us updated, our committee updated, what goes on with
Yeah,
that.
I'll apprise council. I've talked to people individually, but we do own that quadrant of the square, and I'm very pleased that we're going to be renovating Public Square, but we do have to maintain to make sure that the county doesn't lose any ownership of property, and make sure that we're protecting. And of course, we had the vandalism there, you probably saw on TV, so we're concerned about that also, but we're taking. And I might point out that I guess that we remember the funds we had left over that we set in a separate fund for the monument, and so they'll anticipate I talked to Bonnie, and they anticipate using that money, for the repair. So this is exactly what that money was set aside for special repairs. So whatever it costs, that we've got the funds out of that fund. So, all right, any other discussion on this? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Consideration of ordinances for third reading adoption.
Ordinance number 2013-0023, an ordinance amending Chapter 701 of the Cuyahoga County Code by adding Section 701.05 to establish a policy for a more consistent approach to compensation, including any pay rate adjustments, cost of living adjustments, and/or merit pay awards to all or a significant part of its non-bargaining employees as part of the biennial budget process or throughout the year.
Move to adopt.
Moved by Mr. Gallagher and seconded by Mr. Jemand. Any discussion on this?
Madam President, I'm going to be voting no on this particular ordinance because of the courts, a requirement that includes the courts it just in this whole ordinance. And I've said consistently that I think the courts are a separate body, they're a separate unit of government, and I don't think this council has the ability to tell them how to manage their budget. So I understand what the intent is, and I appreciate the equity portion of this, but when it comes to the courts, I have difficulty passing this ordinance, knowing my view that I think they're a separate body and we really can't get into the micromanaging of what they're doing. But I laud the intent, and I appreciate the sentiment of really trying to get equity among employees within the court system as well as without. And the judges did send a letter to us. I think everybody received it. I got mine today, expressing their discontent as well, based on the same principle.
I got the letter, and I had known that this letter was coming. I have a lot of respect for Mr. Gallagher and his intent. However, is it possible that we could pass this over to the next meeting? Because we have, all of the judges of the various courts have signed a personal letter asking us to reconsider. And I think out of courtesy to another branch of government, that we would at least give an opportunity to have a thorough reading of their letter. If we disagree, fine, but I think just as a courtesy, it would be more than fair to at least give an opportunity to be heard if we want to run it by the law department again, and then just put this over to the next meeting. Would you have any objection to that, Mr. Gallagher?
Well, Madam President, my concern with that is, and in another 2 weeks probably wouldn't make a difference, but speaking of courtesy, I think courtesy goes both ways. This has been read 3 times. We've had 3 opportunities for the public to make a statement. The judges knew this was on the table since October of 13. This was born out of an act of the Common Pleas Court of giving their employees a backdoor raise when other employees in the county did not receive that raise, and we actually voted to keep down the raises of other county employees. I didn't appreciate it at the time. I don't appreciate it now. They had 3 committee meetings where this was posted, and they didn't show up. And true to form, in my dealings with the Common Pleas Court in particular, and the minions that fall behind, and I'm talking about probate, domestic, and the juvenile judges, at 3:05 today, they send us a letter on the date we're going to vote on this. 3:05, much like the day they give the raise to their employees at the last hour on a Friday. Everything's delivered at the last hour. I welcome them to come to my committee meeting in 2 weeks en masse to answer to the public. I would love to do that. And you know what's going to come through that door? Nothing.
Well, Mr.
Nobody's going to come through that door because what they did was they found a backdoor way in which to give their employees a raise. Well, when we're trying to corral the raises, absolutely 2 weeks. Love to see it. It'll be Tuesday in 2 weeks at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I will debate anybody with a law degree in this tower or in any building with a black robe on,
I had different color robes, so.
or pastel. But absolutely, and you know what? This is going to be a waste of 2 weeks. There's not a thing. I didn't go to law school, and I know they don't have legal standing.
Well,
And this has never been brought up by any lawyer anywhere other than on this panel. And I can appreciate friendships. I've spent 30 years in the courts, and I know where all the bodies are. And this is where one of the bodies is. And it needs to go. And we're not telling them they can't do what they did, which I don't think was fair. We're not telling them they can't do it. We're telling them, if you're going to do it, give us 30 days. And the public will have 30 days to let these folks know what they feel about what they're doing. Absolutely. Come in. I dare you. I double dare you.
Mr. Phil Miller.
Madam President and my colleagues, I just want to bring to everybody's attention that the wording of this legislation was specifically designed around separation of powers concerns. What the legislation simply says is that it's going to be the policy of the county to request that every agency, department, or court, or whatever, provide us this 30 days notice, so that if we can voluntarily get people to do that, we have at least a chance to do a little jawboning before action is cast in concrete. And the reason for that is simply because the charter says that we're aiming for an efficient and economical system for the employment of persons in the public service of the county according to merit and fitness. And that means that different agencies don't have wildly different systems where some get automatic 3% and others we try to do something based on merit and fitness. And so, I mean, it's up to the president of council and my colleagues, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just asking for a little voluntary cooperation so that we can all work together and try to achieve what's in the charter, and that's all this is about.
And I think your point is well taken, and I think that there's no reason for us to antagonize these judges. If we can pass it and give them an opportunity, at least, I just got the letter, it gives everybody an opportunity to read it, then vote what you want in 2 weeks. I mean, I think, Mr. Fitzgerald, do you want to throw
I
your
just
hat?
had a question. If Mr. Gallagher gets his debate, are we allowed to sell tickets to it, or do we?
I'll tell you what. I'm going to tell you
I should have
what.
never called on you, because now
I'll
you
tell
got
you
his blood
what. I'm
pressure
getting a
up.
robe made up myself, and the people are going to win this debate. The people of
I
Cuyahoga
knew I
County
made a
will win this
mistake calling
debate.
on you.
And I'll tell you what. I'll be swinging here alone, but I'll be swinging.
I mean, I think, members of council, I think, let's just give them the 2 weeks. Does anybody have any problem with that?
We can give it 2 weeks, but let's be clear.
If they don't show up, you can vote the way
No,
you
let's
want.
be clear. They have shown us no courtesy in this matter. I give them 2 weeks, and the door, I'll have those taken off the hinges so we don't have any problems with nobody being able to get in.
All right, I'm just going to exercise the president's prerogative and pass this.
Or seconds on the motion off?
Yeah, take them off
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
Take my
yes.
second.
All right, and then we'll pass and we'll have it in 2 weeks, and everybody will have an opportunity to read it and have some peace and take your blood pressure medicine tonight. Okay, next item.
Ordinance number 2014-0013, an ordinance amending chapter 701 of the Cuyahoga County Code by adding section 701.04 to establish a policy for any requests for new programs or services that require an additional appropriation as part of the biennial budget process or throughout the year.
Moved by Mr. Miller and seconded by Mr. Greenspan. Anybody want to be heard on this?
This will be a kinder, gentler council member.
Okay.
Madam President, this is an item that we've discussed in committee, and fundamentally what it does, it somewhat makes the request for internal use of public funds a little more in line with an external use for public funds, in that we now would request that a program or service overview be submitted, a program or service budget be submitted, a program or service milestone and timeline be submitted, and a program or service staffing levels be submitted for an internal request of public dollars. We saw during the budget process last year, which was the genesis of this, that we had 8 words sometimes requesting the use of $1 million, and there were no accountability milestones. And we're a lot more strict upon the request of external users. This just puts our requests internally more in line with that of external users. And I'd urge my colleagues for their support.
All right, any other questions or comment? Ms. Simon?
I'm going to be voting no on this piece of legislation for the same reason I voted no for the first piece in the series of 3. I believe that's going to be coming down to us. And the reason for this is I don't think we need an ordinance, a law requiring information that we otherwise would be entitled to when we go through a budget process. We can ask for accountability milestones, and if we don't get them, then we won't appropriate. So when we put this in an ordinance and a law, I think we're really putting us in a box, and we continue to over-legislate that which we can accomplish without the ordinance. So that's why I'll be voting no. I don't think we need it, and I think we have the power of the purse to begin with. So why we continue to put laws on the books is questionable. And I think it just creates a problem perhaps down the line if we don't do something, or we miss a comma or someplace, it might impact something bigger.
Any other comments or questions?
I hold in my hands, to quote Johnny Carson, the list of appropriations that we received, $11 million for 14, $15 million for 15, to which we asked for that information and it was not provided. One of those items has, as I said in committee, 9 words for $1 million. I voted against those items because it did not have the sufficient accountability, and without guidelines, there is no accountability. So I respect Ms. Simon's position. I disagree with it, and I urge my colleagues for their full support.
Just one thing, Madam President. Yeah, that's my point. You voted, we have the power to say no if we're not satisfied with the words. I'm not going to belabor this, but we do have the power to say no, and you did it.
Madam President.
Yes, Mr. Miller.
I think it becomes difficult where you have to ask for every piece of information on an ad hoc basis. You know, I think if we get into a certain regularity and habit of certain kinds of reporting that's needed on a regular basis, that it's just gonna make matters easier for both us and the administration. And I don't think this measure is over legislating. I think it just has the core essentials of information that we should have about any new program that we're contemplating. So I ask my colleagues for their favorable vote. Thank you.
All right, any other questions?
Madam
Right.
Chairperson.
Yes, Mr. Brady.
I just wanted to say that even though I'm going to support this legislation, that I think that Councilwoman Simon has a point, and that, you know, we have a lot of things to do, and I think there is a danger of over-legislating and trying to be too specific and micromanaging the county in a way that I don't think that the county council is really designed to do. And it's just a general feeling I have about this, and but I'll be supporting this specific legislation this evening.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Mann.
You know, we're setting a standard. I've said this before. We're setting a standard on how county should be run. This is not over legislating. This is setting standards of how we're going to operate. So I support this. I'd like to have my name added.
And I'd just like to add that I'm with Brady. I'm going to support this, but I'm continuing to be concerned because you put up all of these ordinances in the fiscal program, and then if you don't dot an I or whatever, then we get tagged on the audit. So I just want to be careful from now on as these go along. All right. So any other discussion? All right. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. And one opposed, nay?
Opposed, nay.
Thank you. All right, legislation introduced by the executive, consideration of resolution of council for first reading, adoption, or suspension of the rules. We need a motion to suspend Rule 9D and 12A.
Madam President, move to suspend the rules.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Gallagher and seconded by Mr. Jemani. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The rules are suspended. Item 0167.
Resolution number 2014-0167, a resolution amending the 2014-2015 biennial operating budget for 2014 by providing for additional fiscal appropriations from the general fund and other funding sources, for appropriation transfers between budget accounts, and for cash transfers between budgetary funds in order to meet the budgetary needs of various county departments, offices, and agencies, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
Move to adopt.
Moved by Mr. Miller and seconded by Mr. Greenspan.
Madam President
Mr. Miller?
and my colleagues, this contains mostly routine appropriations of grants and transfers. There are two items of interest. One is the additional $703,000 appropriation for the Whiskey Island purchase, and inadvertently, we did not budget for the interest payments on the purchase. This item was added as a reserve on balance in the first quarter update and is included now for appropriation. And the second item appropriates $2.5 million in delinquent tax payments to the County Prosecutor's Office per the Ohio Revised Code, and this money will be transferred to the land bank for use on demolition projects in a separate transaction. I ask for the approval of my colleagues.
All right, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, item 0168.
Resolution number 2014-0168, a resolution approving a wage reopener agreement between Cuyahoga County and International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 18, representing approximately 9 employees and 2 classifications in the Department of Public Works for the period January 1, 2015 through December 31, 2015, directing that funds necessary to implement the wage reopener agreement be budgeted and appropriated, authorizing the county executive to execute the agreement and all other documents consistent with this resolution, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Sharon and seconded by Mr. Miller. We didn't put this in executive session because this is consistent with the other programs. It's the recommendation of the administration that we adopt this. It's only 9 employees. It's I don't know, Ms. Hurley is here if there's any specific questions, and if she's here available to answer, but this is consistent with all the same negotiations we've had with the other unions.
That is correct. It follows the pattern, and the law department recommends approval.
Any questions? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, consideration of resolution for first reading and referral to committee.
Resolution number 2014-0169, a resolution making an award on requisition number 30266 to Terrace Construction Company Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $3,090,234.50 for the 2014-2015 sewer and lateral repair program in various communities, authorizing the county executive to execute the contract and all other documents consistent with said award and this resolution, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
Goes to Public Works.
Resolution number 2014-0170, resolution making an award on requisition number 27440 to One Community in the amount not to exceed $240,000 for internet service provider and fiber maintenance services for the period June 1, 2014 through December 31, 2018, authorizing the county executive to execute the contract and all other documents consistent with said award and this resolution, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
Goes to Finance and Budget.
Resolution number 2014-0171, a resolution making awards on requisition number 30142 to various providers for Workforce Investment Act youth training for the period July 1, 2014 through June 30, 2015, authorizing the county executive to execute the agreements and contracts and all other documents consistent with said awards and this resolution, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective for the programs, the providers, and in the amounts not to exceed as printed on the agenda, items I through I-4.
It goes to Education, Environment, and Sustainability. Okay, committee, item C, committee reports and consideration of resolution for second reading adoption or suspension of the rules. These matters have been to the committee, and we need a motion to suspend Rule 90 that require a third reading.
Madam President, I move to suspend the rule.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Gallagher and seconded by Mr. Jimana. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. The rule is suspended.
Resolution number 2014-0153, a resolution adopting the annual tax budget, including the Cuyahoga County Library budget for the year 2015, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
Move to adopt.
Moved by Mr. Miller and seconded by Mr. Pizarro. Any discussion on this?
Madam President, this item is an early forecast of the 2015 budget that is required by state law to show the need for taxes levied. Generally, the actual budget adopted is somewhat lower than this budget. I ask for the approval of my colleagues.
I call the library the free bookstore, that you can go in there and you don't have to pay money. You just show them your card and take out a book. So, and I told you, I'm now in love with the Beechwood Library. So, got great services. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Resolution number 2014-0157, a resolution making an award on requisition number 27791 to Key Bank National Association in the total amount not to exceed $962,829 for various services for the period May 1, 2014 through August 23, 2017, authorizing the county executive to execute the contract and all other documents consistent with said award and this resolution, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective in the amounts and for the services as printed on the agenda, items 2I and II.
To adopt.
Moved by Mr. Miller and seconded by Ms. Conwell. And we had a question in committee regarding this travel budget. The information was supplied to us. I have a couple more questions, but I'm satisfied because they did send us the information. Any other questions? I think everybody received that information, email. Okay. All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it.
Resolution number 2014-0158, a resolution making awards on requisition number 29544 to various providers for various programs and services for the Cuyahoga County Fatherhood Initiative for the period July 1, 2014 through June 30, 2015, authorizing the county executive to execute the agreements and contracts and all other documents consistent with said awards and this resolution, and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective for the providers in the amounts and for the programs and services as printed on the agenda, items I through XII.
Move to adopt.
Moved by Mr. Sharon and seconded by Ms. Conwell. Any discussion on this item? Mr. Brady?
Well, as everybody probably knows at this point, after 3.5 years, this resolution will make awards to providers of various programs for services for the Fatherhood Initiative. All the programs are open to fathers regardless of their involvement in the justice system. It promotes public awareness of the role of fathers, provides linkage to public systems, educates teens on how to prevent premature fatherhood and assist parents with mediation issues concerning child support. It receives 100% funding through the Health and Human Service levy dollars. We had a very extensive, I think, 2-hour conversation in Health and Human Services last week about this particular resolution, and I asked my colleagues for their support.
Any other questions?
Madam, like to be added to this legislation.
And Mr. Harrison, he had an opportunity to speak to the annual meeting and address to all the attendees, and I'm sure it was very well attended. Ms. Conwell?
And Madam President, I'd like to just say, I attended the Fatherhood Conference as well. This segment is a vulnerable segment of the community. We serve so many different parts of this community that have need. This is one that I think we need to spotlight as well. These fathers are responsible for their children, and many take responsibility. And we have, as a county, have a responsibility to them as well. And this Fatherhood Initiative plays a vital role in meeting those needs. When I attended the conference, there were many questions about navigating the county systems, but the one question that comes up every year as I attend this conference is, what can you do to create a job or provide a job opportunity? And invariably, I get that question as the elected official. So these are things that, when there are, again, so many different segments that need help, and this being one of them, finding ways to provide jobs for this particular segment is an issue that I don't necessarily have the answer to completely, but it's certainly a question that needs to continually be asked and finding ways to address. I'll say one thing that Al Grimes and his department really does very well is they vet these young men, okay? Well, regardless of the age. There are external factors why someone is not being successful, and then there are internal factors to that person. And they do an excellent job of determining when someone genuinely wants to be successful as a father and in life. And that is a critical part. When we do our inclusion goals, when we create our community benefits goals and inclusion goals, and we have poverty numbers that we want to reach, this department can play a role in that. I know we have our leaders like Jeff Applebaum and others who are working on our projects, but this is an area where I see even more opportunities for partnership, where we can start to pipeline the residents of this community, of this county, into the work opportunities that are available. And again, this department does an excellent job. They advertise on the radio. They reach a segment that, again, many live along the poverty line, and advertising that's done through this program is critical. They reach a segment who may not be reached any other way than maybe their favorite radio station again, what Al Grimes and the Fatherhood Initiative does is, again, one more of those critical areas, one of those doorways that the residents of this community will enter through at the Fatherhood Initiative, and it's one I support wholeheartedly.
And thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Shrine?
And as do I. We had an opportunity to speak before a number of groups that are supported here, and one of the key components that they recognized, and my colleague Pernell, that they recognized by having the simple things like a suit and a tie and a pair of shoes, so they can go out there and be presentable to make a good impression on that interview when they go out there. And it was very moving to be in the room there, where all of the futures and homes and hopes were on those coat racks, waiting for somebody to step into those shoes, put that coat on, and go forward and make that job. And so my hat's off to everybody that's part of this, and I'm honored to be supporting this tonight.
Thank you. All right, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Move on to item D.
I'd like to have my name added if it's not already a part.
All right, consideration of ordinance for first reading, referral to committee.
Ordinance number 2014-0018, an ordinance enacting Chapter 715 of the Cuyahoga County Code to establish a social impact financing fund for the purpose of funding contracts to improve outcomes and lower costs for contracted government services in Cuyahoga County, and declaring the necessity that this ordinance become immediately effective.
Before I refer this matter to the Finance and Budget Committee, I just want to say that I've heard 3 presentations on this program. I have 3 and 3/4 degree. I passed the Ohio State Bar Association. I'm a published historian. I'm a paid lecturer on the intricacies of the Kennedy assassination, and I can't understand this program. So whenever you make this presentation, Mr. Merriman, you better present it so that people with even some modicum of understanding can understand it. I listened diligently 3 different times. Nobody can tell me in simple English what it does. So when you come to this committee, I will be there. I'm willing to listen again, but I want an explanation. Joanne Gross, who was much smarter than I am, listened to it 3 times. She couldn't understand it. Other people, our staff people, we've listened again and again. So break it down in common English. Do you understand?
Madam President,
Yes.
let me say a couple words about it. Not about the Kennedy assassination, even though I think Oswald acted alone. But
I mean, I'm not here to get into a debate, Mr. Fitzgerald, but I'm
it's not a
understanding
debate,
it's
but
a
you
very
said some
different.
things that I want to address. So what I would just say is this. I've heard the presentations too. I don't pretend to be smarter than any of the people that you mentioned it, but to me, the concept is really pretty straightforward. And this is what it's based on. And by the way, this is something that's been implemented in the United Kingdom. It's being implemented in the state of Massachusetts. It's being implemented in New York. It's being implemented on the West Coast. And it's something that is being considered. It is new. It is innovative. It is groundbreaking. It isn't a typical way of funding a social intervention, but it's based on a really simple, I think, straightforward principle, and that is this. If an intervention in a child's life, let's say, is particularly impactful, does it make sense to make an enormous or a really impactful investment early at the very early stages because you can quantify that will save money over time? So for instance, if you have an intervention to make sure that a child that might be going into the Department of Children and Family Services and have custody taken away from the parent, if you make additional investments to make sure that child is placed permanently or the parents don't lose custody in the first place, do you actually save money over time because of that investment? And the answer to that is yes. There are certain social programs that are so impactful at the early stages that you can save an enormous amount of taxpayer money because of an early investment. Now, is there a way to monetize that savings so that a private sector institution or a nonprofit will say, we will fund the early intervention and that will save the county or the state or the federal government X amount of money, and therefore we will end up getting a return on our investment. In other words, it's a way to invest not in a company, not in a stock, not in a oil and gas well, but in a process that will eventually save public money because of how effective the intervention is. And that's it. And that's it. So the way that works is not the easiest thing in the world, but it has been working across the country. We're the only county in the United States that is this far along, and it's been recognized, for instance, by the Arnold Foundation. We just made an announcement that they have a $780,000 grant to help us implement this type of a program. And they're a foundation, it's based in Texas, they're a foundation that is based on funding innovative programs, and they're extremely data-driven. If we haven't done a good enough job explaining that in terms that can be easily understood by the public, then we'll have to do better. I'll tell you, I have seen presentations on this that to me are very powerful, and I will look forward, and I respect your point of view, Madam President, that if it hasn't been explained sufficiently, but I'm quite confident we had an enormous amount of stakeholders around the table last week. Folks from the Gun Foundation, the Cleveland Foundation, a number of very well-respected social service agencies that have decades of experience in this area, as well as the Arnold Foundation, and well as our own county team, and they're believers in this. Not because it's a pipe dream, but because it's been shown to be something that can be effective. If we haven't explained that well enough, the ball will be in our court, and we'll look forward to having that dialogue.
You really got to do, I mean, we don't need to get into debate tonight, but you really have got to break this down because it's very difficult to understand, and I've really tried. And if I can't go to the voters and say, well, I voted for something I can't even explain myself.
I understand.
Okay. All right, so just give me a live example. I kept saying, well, just give me an example of some. So anyway, it's the finance and budget. It'll be in Mr. Miller's ballpark. Okay. All right, let's go on.
Ordinance number 2014-0019, an ordinance enacting Chapter 716 of the Cuyahoga County Code to establish procedures for setting the fee structure for Sheriff's Department background check services and declaring the necessity that this ordinance become immediately effective.
This goes to public safety.
Ordinance number 2014-0020, an ordinance enacting Chapter 717 of the Cuyahoga County Code to authorize extension of the capital improvement bed tax and to authorize the use of said proceeds in accordance with agreement with the mayor of the city of Cleveland as approved by a majority of local mayors and city managers and declaring the necessity that this ordinance become immediately effective.
This is going to the committee of the whole, and I'm not sure of the date that we're going to hear this. There may be some flexibility as to what day we hear this, so we'll let you know exactly, okay? Miscellaneous committee reports, we have some committee meetings set up, and you want to go down the line and people tell us about their committee dates?
Great, thank you, Madam President. Committee of the Whole Charter meetings, the 8 were presented today. July 2nd, 9 a.m., 9 to noon. July 7th, 1:30 to 5:30. And July 17th, 1:30 to 5. The purpose is we have to have these heard by third reading, by the second meeting in August, in order to meet the charter or the Board of Elections deadline of September 5th. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Miller?
Madam President and my colleagues, we are going to have 2 hearings of the Finance and Budget Committee to hear the item we just discussed on the social impact financing. And the first one is going to be tomorrow at 11 a.m. And although it would not have been officially referred yet, it'll otherwise be a full hearing. And in preparation for this meeting, I've prepared a summary which I think is pretty good and might help with explaining this concept, so we'll have that available for everybody. And the second meeting will be on Tuesday, July the 1st. That will be at 2 o'clock. Thank you very much.
Madam Chairperson, following the Finance Committee meeting at 1 o'clock, the Health and Human Services Committee is going to meet. This is a little different. We don't have a resolution in front of us. There is an organization called One Community that has been lobbying the county to have an opportunity to make a presentation. And we have an opportunity tomorrow to give them that chance. This has to do with raising awareness around digital literacy and hopefully providing the community with broadband internet access. I'm looking forward to it. It should be interesting. We don't have a resolution, but we will take time. They've been patient, and tomorrow will be the day that we'll give them their chance to give a presentation.
I apologize in advance to my committee members. Tuesday, July 8th, we just granted the courts an opportunity to come in.
You take your blood pressure medicine.
1 o'clock, undercard at 1 o'clock.
Can we have the EMS at the door,
The
please?
main event probably at 1:05. I'm ready.
What day?
July 8th, unfortunately, we were going to go to the 22nd, but I don't think it'll take long.
We'll have
We
popcorn.
have to make sure this Yeah. Okay, all right, go ahead. Anybody?
We'll have the paddles for you there, Mike. We'll just have them ready to go. And, we do have an Economic Development Committee meeting because one of our members groused and whined. We did move it to 2 o'clock on Monday, so our meeting will be on Monday and the 30th. What time did you ask, Mr. Greenspan? It was for you that we actually changed it to 2 o'clock.
Human Resources Appointment and Equity Committee, July 1st at 10 a.m. for items that were listed last council meeting.
Works Committee meeting will not take place at our regular Wednesday time slot to accommodate the Committee of the Whole meeting that's scheduled. So we'll have a special time of July 1st at 12 noon. So July 1, 12 noon.
Bring your lunch.
Bring.
All right, anything else? Ms. Simon?
Sure. Education's meeting on the 2nd at 3 o'clock.
Then we have a committee of the whole, it's the 2nd at 9 o'clock. Right? Yeah, okay, right.
Madam President, just one more announcement. If you guys didn't get this, Cuyahoga County Kennel on Friday, this Friday is having a little event, Tales on the Town. It will be at the Velvet Dog from 6:30 to 9:30. So if you guys can go, that would be great to find out the good things that are happening at the kennel.
Anything further? Anyone to sign in? Any other miscellaneous business?
No, Madam Chair, no one signed in.
All right, we stand adjourned.